Hello, flirties. From Flirt Headquarters, it's me, Benjamin, the Flirt Coach, and Gay Libra. The full conversation with Dr. Shanté Holley on the art of surrender coming in mere moments. Trust me, you do not want to miss a millisecond of this conversation. But I wanted to offer something I've been saying at the very end, the bitter end of every episode, and bring it here to the beginning. And that is to please rate, review, subscribe to the show. You can leave a star rating on Apple or Spotify. 5 stars sounds amazing to me. You can leave a thumbs up on YouTube, leave a written review on Apple, a comment on YouTube. Yes, please engage with the show. Share this episode or another favorite episode with a friend, a family member, a friend, someone you even mildly like, someone you want to share some BFE, big flirt energy with. I love you and appreciate you for it. Thank you so much for being here. All of this is for you. I do this, yes, for you, for matters of the heart, for matters of life, to help us flirt, date, connect, and make those partnerships and relationships with a little more confidence, a little more fun, a little more ease. And now let's get into the official introduction and meet Dr. Shanté. Coming up on this episode of Flirtations, we welcome Dr. Shanté Holley to the show, a certified life coach, writer, professor, and host of the podcast Hole in Your Heart on YouTube, to have a conversation with us about the art of surrender. We explore how to trust the timing of your life, the difference between surrender and submission, and how to accept what you cannot change while still believing deeply in yourself and what is possible. We'll go into how to process anger and hurt when you've been wronged, how to stop living in the past, and how the very act of trying to control outcomes is often where we lose our power. Dr. Shanté offers insights into why force is the opposite of surrender, how to recognize the subtle ways we abandon ourselves, and why surrender is not weakness, but strength. If you've been holding on too tightly to old beliefs or having a hard time letting go, feeling stuck, or if your strength has started to look more like struggle, this episode, it's for you. Let's do this, flirties, and meet Dr. Shanté.
I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. Hello, my name is Benjamin. I'm the Flirt Coach and a Gay Libra. Everyone has an inner flirt.
Hey, flirty.
Live, laugh, flirt.
Work the flirt.
Work the flirt. Delulu is the Salulu. Expert on the flirt.
Hey, flirty. There's always another flirt.
Everyone has an inner flirt. Get out of your head and into the flirt.
Flirties, on the show today, we welcome Dr. Shanté Holley, a certified life coach, writer, professor, and host of the podcast Hole in Your Heart on YouTube, who specializes in guiding individuals through the complexities of healing, wellness, and personal development, to have a conversation with us about the art of surrender. Dr. Shanté Holley, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor, Ben.
It is an honor to have you on Flirtations, my heart pitter patter. I've been following you on Instagram for, gosh, at least a few years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, this was inevitable.
Truly, honestly, yes. You were one of the first accounts I found when I was just getting started in my own coaching journey, when I was going through this change of just upheaving, changing my whole life, changing careers, right? Quitting my job, selling my house, risking it all, starting a whole new venture. And the content that you were creating and continued to create just really spoke to me. So thank you.
You're very welcome. That's one of the really wonderful things about doing what I call like answering the call, right? So I don't think I would have ever signed up to be sitting in front of a camera speaking to people on a weekly basis because, believe it or not, I'm an introvert. I know I don't give those vibes, but I'm very much like an introvert. And, social media is not the nicest place in the world. Like, it can be a very cantankerous type of place, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, I feel this calling in my heart to do this work, and it must be for somebody.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to just kind of show up there, give these messages, release myself from the outcome, because I'm like, whoever's supposed to hear it is going to hear it.
Yes.
And you were one of those people. So I'm glad that it found you when you needed it to be found.
Definitely. And I want to hear, I think already a microcosm of what it means to surrender in those last couple statements. In many ways.
It is.
Yeah. There's the episode. Just kidding. We have way more to get to. Lots of questions that came through. But in this first part of the interview, I want to hear a little bit more about this calling and what inspired you to do the work that you do.
So it's really interesting. So I came like from this faith background, and I didn't come from the faith background in terms of like this kind of like Bible thumpy, fire and brimstone. I came from it from the perspective of I grew up in this environment and I've seen a lot of things and I've seen a lot of damage done. So I'm going to come into this space and try to mitigate some of the rhetoric, because especially in the mental health space, because a lot of people were being led to believe that you could not be a part of a faith community and have this relationship with a higher power and have a therapist. It was like, oh, well, you just don't have enough faith. And I was like, oh, no.
Okay.
Oh, no. We're going to disrupt this, And the thing is that whenever I don't want to say against, but whenever you challenge or you have a counter narrative to something that is very deeply rooted and well established, you can expect, pushback. This is why I call it a calling, because I was like, who signs up for the pushback?
Right.
I could have chosen health and beauty, which also would have been a farce, because I am not a Maybelline queen. Like, I will throw a little concealer on, a little blush on my cheeks, walk out the door with some Vaseline and call it a day. But it's like, who signs up for the pushback? At the same time, I do have a heart of empathy, and I can see when people are struggling, and I can see when people are in distress. And I'm like, if I can see this locally, I can only imagine how large of an issue this is. And so when I started podcasting about this juxtaposition between faith and mental health, it just blew up, and people were like, yes, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And I'm very transparent about my own struggles within the institution of religion. I have gone toe to toe with some pastors. I'm like, I'm not scared of you. Okay. Like, we're going to have this conversation. And so truth always stands. And I honestly believe it's why I have the following that I have on social media, because people are like, man, this lady really just cut through the BS. She really she put some meat on the bone and she really just cut the fluff. And people appreciate that, because in the world that we live in, there's a lot of window dressing and a lot of like flowery, love and light type of talk. And I'm like, ain't no shade to the love and light girlies, but sometimes people just need something a little bit more substantive. And I think I was able to kind of slide into that space, fully not expecting people to latch onto it, but they have, and I'm grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so glad you're doing what you do. And I can relate a little bit to, or a lot of it to, some of your experience, like talking about the pushback. I have this conversation with my mom sometimes where it's like, Mom, why do I seem to always pick the hardest path? Why do I pick like the thing that is going to challenge me to the nth degree, shake me to my core, get me out of my comfort zone? Why can't I just pick the easy path sometimes? Why do I always have to pick the hard one?
Like, why do I never take the path of least resistance?
Seriously. Well, I'm tired, Mom.
Tired. I will say this, I tell people all the time, especially when they're working on some of their challenges and working through traumas and all that type of stuff. I tell people all the time, think about it like this. When you go to the gym and you haven't been in a while, that first workout, it's a little bit of a struggle, but you're like, okay, I made it. But then that next day, your body is like, friends, this is not what we have been doing. This is not, okay, like, what is this? And the thing is, but if you keep going, the weight doesn't get lighter, but you're getting stronger, it becomes easier. And so taking the path or the road that's less traveled, it can be a little bit arduous and rocky, but we definitely tend to be some of the stronger ones in the pack, because it's like, well, there was some value in this, and I have gained some wisdom and perspective from taking this path.
Yeah. That's so true. And let's get into, I want to come back to something you said just a few moments ago as we get into the topic of surrender, the art of surrender. We're going to break it down in a few different ways. And like true Libra fashion, I like to come at even like a single topic or a word from multiple perspectives, because I don't know exactly like how someone is going to receive this information. Like the flirties listening, where are they at in their lives? Where are they at in their lived experiences? Where are they at in the world? So if we can, come at it a few different ways, I'm like, how we talk about it's going to resonate to, I hope, everybody. That's the Libra in me. honestly. But something you were sharing about as it relates to your content that I really pick up from what you create is, there's so much love and light content out there, but what I feel like a lot of that misses is accountability.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Like, it's not just about accepting ourselves. It's also about, if we want to really change, if we really want to surrender, and we really want to personally grow, and this is a more dating focused podcast, so make those relationships with people we're dating, we've also got to accept and take accountability for our own role in our lives, right?
Absolutely. And here's what's tricky about that, and why people are resistant to do it. So I want to dispel this notion right here, right now.
Okay.
One of the reasons why people are resistant to accountability and doing that self-examination and interrogation, like, hold up, where did I, have some role to play in this, right?
Yeah.
One of the reasons why people are resistant in doing that is because they think that by taking responsibility for their part, it will absolve the other person.
Yes.
Because some of us have had arguments with those people where as soon as you admit once, she's like, okay, I can admit that I did this. And people will be like, aha. And they will jump on that. They will pounce on that. And they will use that as the reason why it was you and not them and what have you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, more times than not, when there is a contentious situation or just some mistake made or what have you, there's usually more than one single source. Like, it was a series of events, and it's rarely just any one thing. And so the beauty of self-examination and interrogation is that, and this is the most valuable part of it, flirties, like, okay, I love this name that you have to your people. The most valuable part of that is that it keeps you out of the victim column. Okay. Because when you can't look at, like, wow, when this person said this, I know they meant it as a joke, and I just kind of brushed it off because I was like, well, I'm sure they were just joking. It's like, was that when your spidey senses start tingling, did you brush that to the side, and then did that become a bigger manifestation of more problematic behaviors down the road? Yes, it was. So the question is, why did I ignore that? So it keeps you out of this place of, oh, this happened to me and they said this to me and oh, the woe is me. It's like, wait a minute. I have some agency. I have some choice. And if I do the self-examination and do the accountability work, I also have some growth and some wisdom so that this doesn't keep happening to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, really good, because I love that you frame so much of what you share and also take into account this exact experience where people might blame themselves, right? Like, what did I do wrong? Or somehow I deserved this, or how did I miss that sign, that signal, that red flag? And so it's like, sometimes we say in yoga, where intention goes or where attention goes, energy flows. And it's like, if you're focusing solely on you and just blaming yourself for being in this position, it's like, now we kind of can very easily get stuck in that loop of just self-blame, self-criticism. And then it's like you kind of look for evidence to confirm how you're feeling.
Not only that, but it's not about blame. It's about ownership. Okay. And ownership of the process. So for example, let's say you bake a cake, right? And most cakes tend to have like the similar ingredients, butter, flour, sugar, eggs, or what have you. Because you're like, oh, I had a cake at Karen's shower and I love that cake and I asked for the recipe. And then when you bake it and you taste it, you're like, this isn't quite how. And so you don't just say like, oh, I'm just a terrible baker and like, I'll never get this or whatever. You go back and you say, oh, okay, they said fold in the eggs, not mix the eggs. So it's like, where in this process could I have done something differently and then subsequently gotten a different result? So it's not about this internalization of this shame storm where it's like about who you are. It is an examination of what you didn't do, could have done differently that can potentially produce a better outcome.
Okay. And in this experience, because I got some questions here from the flirties, that it's like, how, as we're talking about surrender, if so much of their attention is externally focused, right? If they're they're in that phase where they're resentful, maybe even a little bit revengeful, right? They're angry. They're like, but that person, right? They hurt me in this way. It could have been, let's say, an ex-spouse or someone you were dating or in a relationship with, or it could even be maybe a supervisor or a boss or something like that, where you feel so wronged and you just want to like, but if they could just see what they did, right?
Yeah.
How about that experience?
So, you know how people say, I'm going to hold your hand while I say this?
Yes.
Okay. So first, let me say that if you are in that place, those feelings are real. Those feelings are valid. That hurt is hurt. Okay. And there's no sidestepping that. And there is something in psychological circles called radical acceptance.
Yes. Okay.
And let me tell you what that looks like. So I live in Chicago, and Chicago in the summertime is unparalleled. I will die on that hill. Like, okay, we are Condé Nast best big city 8 years in a row. There's a reason for that. But one of the reasons is because we have this big, beautiful lake, but we also have a river. And so let's say one day you are just walking along the river walk. You are walking and talking. The sun is shining. You got on a cute outfit and some new shoes. And then somebody on a bicycle gets a little too close to you and bam, you're in the river. You didn't deserve that. They should have looked where they were going. Like, your outfit is ruined. Your shoes are soaked. The water is nasty. On every possible level, you are the victim in this scenario and you have been wronged. At the same time, the longer you stay in that water talking about, this is some BS. I can't believe it. Did you see that? Do you see what happened to me? And they just rolled up. The longer you stay in that water waiting for the bicyclist to come back and apologize, you're going to get sicker. You're going to get weaker. You're going to get dirtier. None of that is getting you any closer to coming up out of that water. Radical acceptance is, you know what? I didn't deserve this. This isn't my fault. And this is hurtful. And yet I need to get out of the water. And when I get out of the water, then I can make some different decisions. Then I can at least get dry. And the getting dry in this piece is I need to heal. And I need to get dry whether or not the bicyclist ever comes back to say, oh, my bad. Sorry, I was listening to, Kendrick Lamar and I was in a moment, and I just, that sort of thing, because whether they come back or not, you're the one that's still in the water. And sometimes we need to understand the difference between being at fault and being responsible for owning the problem, right? So it's it's not your fault that you're in the water, but it is your responsibility to get out of it.
Yeah.
And getting out of the water has to be a separate process than from the person who put you in there or whose fault it is for you being in there in the first place. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. That is, it's a great analogy. And shout out to Chicago in the summertime.
Hey.
I mean, my gosh, my sister and brother-in-law used to live there, and they're getting ready to move, and we'd go for usually like one of our annual visits sometime like in the spring, summer, and y'all be spoiled up there.
Definitely don't. But that's because we get so raggedy in the winter. Definitely don't come during the winter months. That it is
okay,
ghetto.
You got me there. You got me there. It's a trade-off. But this analogy of being in the water, it's like the longer you stay in the water, right? It's like you're already wet, the wetter you may get. Kind of if it's cold, the sicker you may get, right? It's just you're not doing yourself any favors by just sitting there treading water or just sort of blaming yourself kind of thing, or just being so angry at what just happened at this other person that may never come back and take accountability, or may never even be aware of what they did. Maybe they were looking the other way. They had that music blasting in their ears, right? They might not even be, I don't want to absolve them of all responsibility. Certainly, if you're dating in a relationship with someone, they've got to have some level of awareness if they've wronged you or hurt you in some way. But I really wanted to open this conversation of surrender talking about acceptance, because I think that's where a lot of the flirties have a difficult time, where they equate acceptance with being weak. They equate acceptance with maybe even forgiving someone that really did hurt them. They equate acceptance with, I'm not ready for that experience, perhaps. And so, yeah, I really wanted to open this conversation talking about acceptance.
So let me give you a full-throated Aries answer.
I'm here for it.
You are the Libra. But baby, I'm a feisty April Aries, okay? And something that I always say, and you can call it pride, you can call it ego, you can just call it being, born and under a fire sign. Something that I always say is that if you got me in the wash, you're not going to get me in the rinse, okay?
Ooh, okay.
So I have showed up in relationships wholehearted, healed, ready, my best self, ready to partner, ready to give. And you showed up ready to take, okay, but not ready to meet the level of commitment and care and consideration that a healthy partnership requires. And so I accept, and a lot of people in that situation, this is how they get corroded and they get bitter because they're like, see, I did that last time and look where it got me. See, I won't be doing that no more. But see, that's what I mean when I say now they got you in the rinse. Okay, like you hurt me on the front end and now you changed me on the back end. Who are you to have that kind of power over me?
Yeah.
You ain't got that kind of juice, baby. You don't have that kind of swag that for the rest of my existence in the way that I show up in the world, in the way that I show up in relationship, in the way that I show up as the best and highest possible version of myself, that you would have some influence over that. What?
Yeah.
Especially when you have gone on with your life, when you've moved on to victim number 27, it's like, no, absolutely not. Like if you got me on the front end, I refuse to let you have that kind of power over me on the back end. And so acceptance is not weakness. Acceptance is not defeat. Acceptance is truth.
Yes.
That's what acceptance is. Acceptance is truth. I showed up at 100%. You showed up at 65. There is a disparity and we are not compatible and I have moved on. That is the truth.
Yes.
And if you want to give 65, you go meet somebody else that's willing to meet you at 65 or willing to take 65, but it's not going to be me.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Can I get a witness?
Yes. Amen, Dr. Shanté. Amazing. Oh my gosh. Acceptance is truth.
Acceptance is truth.
Yes.
That's all that it is. That's all that it is. And I also want to get into this piece because you kind of keep coming back to this. What a failed relationship or what a failed dating experience means about the person. It doesn't have to mean anything about you personally because see, here's the thing. Let me tell you, my biological father, who for the record, I did not even see his face until he was in the casket. That's another podcast for another day. But as I read the obituary and listened to people talk about this man that I never knew, by all accounts, he was the life of the party. He was very affable. He would laugh and joke and drink and hey. And here's what people need to understand. It's not about, good person or bad person. What I say he was a quote unquote bad person, I mean, fundamentally, no. Was he off, plotting, malice and deviance and sowing discord into the world? No. But was he a bad fit for the role of father? Yes, he was. And so sometimes it's not like, oh my gosh, this guy is just like, or this woman is like, she's horrible. She may or may not be a bad person. That's relative and we cannot get caught up in that. But were they a bad fit for the needs of the role? Think about it like an employment. Like you all of us have worked with bad hires. Okay. It's like, hey, Robin is just like, they laugh and joke, but Robin ain't doing the work. Okay.
Right,
Robin is taking too many long breaks. Robin ain't showing up to work on time. And even though I might go to a Bulls game with Robin, I might go to the hockey match with Robin, but in terms of like a colleague and a coworker that I need to depend on consistently to do my work well, Robin is not a good hire. And so that's all it is that it's like, it's not about I'm a good person, bad person. I'm such a crappy judge of character. It's like, hey, this person was not a good fit for the needs of the role.
Yes.
End of story.
And now we're getting to the truth, right?
The truth.
Without story, without attachment to potential. I see that a lot of times with the flirties and daters where, right, you're starting to date someone, or even you're in a relationship with someone and they seem, right, they're sort of like, they've got the big social network, like tons of friends, or they're really high achieving, really successful in their career. They show up so well in other areas of their lives. And then in the relationship, it's like, where's that version of this person I'm dating? Exactly. Well, they just might not be a good fit for the role of your partner, right? Just because they're kind of so great in other areas of their lives doesn't mean it's going to correlate or parallel with a romantic relationship.
That's exactly right. And all that is truth. And so accepting that instead of trying to force, because here's the thing about surrender. Force is the opposite of surrender. Anytime you're trying to manufacture an outcome, anytime you're trying to pull the puppet strings or, jimmy the levers, so that things are just right. And so often we give up so much of our power trying to do that because it's like we're auditioning for a role. If I make this wonderful meal, I'll show what a potentially good spouse I could be. If I spend this amount of money, I'll show how good life could be. If I overgive and overextend and over whatever. And it's like, honey, what you doing?
What are we doing?
What you doing? What are you doing? Okay,
I know.
Because we are overgiving, overextending to people that here it is, really don't even know.
No. Yeah.
It's like, and what that tells a person is, wait a minute. So you mean to tell me I can show up and do the bare minimum? I can show up and, just exist on this plane and I'm getting my shoes shined and my shirts pressed and my dinner cooked. And, I'm getting gift cards to Starbucks. Like, hope you're having a wonderful day. Here's something to, get to help you make it through the afternoon. I mean, there it is. And it's not about making the relationship transactional, because I know there's a lot of conversation about transaction. At the same time, there is such a thing called an energetic mismatch. Okay. And when you go into a relationship or potential dating, trying to manufacture this outcome or force, or try to audition or what have you, you have already given up your power. You have already put yourself at a disadvantage in that situation, because instead of allowing, and a lot of people have anxiety and it's hard for them to allow. They have to put their finger on the scale. It's like, I can't just trust the universe. I can't just trust time. I can't just trust. I have to do something to try to make, and I'm like, okay, well, then that is the opposite. Just know going into it, that is the opposite of surrender, because surrender is about allowing and releasing as opposed to manufacturing and forcing.
Allowing and releasing versus manufacturing and forcing. This is, we're going to stay here on breaking down surrender a little bit more. And because I see this experience all the time with the flirties where they're trying to force themselves into a role or force the other person they're dating into a role. Their anxieties, right? If they're on attachment styles, attachment theory side of social media, are really into that. They might identify as anxiously attached. And so maybe with that, you tend to rush or, you tend to chase rather than just allowing, receiving, releasing into the process of dating. And I want to, because a lot of dating advice will say, right, just don't have expectations, right? I've even said that to an extent. Don't be attached to the outcome. Just let go, right? Give in to the process. But that is dating advice that I think misses so much nuance and so much complexity when what happens when you do start to feel anxious? What happens when you have those questions about like pacing or communication or texting? And so not speaking so much to a lot of the specificities of the early dating process, but how can we surrender and just let go, but also, as we've been talking about thus far, accepting that we can trust ourselves?
That's an excellent question, because one of the things that I like to do, especially with my coaching clients, is reframe. Okay. Is reframe. And I think that a lot of times in these dating scenarios where you can't control, all you can do is control yourself, right? You can't control the other person, because let me throw this truth bomb back on here, and then I'm gonna come back to my point.
Okay.
Flirties, let me tell you something. Buki, you could do all the things, okay? You can check all the boxes, okay? And still get left, still get cheated on, because we can run down the celebrity row of people who showed up and were beautiful and all the things. And it's like, okay, but at the end of the day, you cannot control the actions of the other person. And so no matter how many quote unquote boxes you're checking, all you can do is show up as yourself. But one of the things that too many people do when they get into the dating process is they immediately shift it's like an evaluation. Does this person like me? Does this person like me? And am I enough for them? Am I whatever? And I always push back and I say, you need to be asking yourself, do I like myself when I'm with this person?
Truth.
And you would be surprised. Truth. Okay. Yes. And you would be surprised how many people don't like themselves when they're with, because they don't speak up, because they don't, they're not their full selves. They're shrinking back, or they're dimming their light, or they don't talk about the things that they're really passionate about, because it's like, oh, well, I know that person would be interested in that. Or, I don't want that person. Here's the big one. I don't want that person to think. That is the big one. I don't want this person to think. Yeah. And so when you don't even like yourself in that situation, in that scenario, you are building from a place, you are building on an inauthentic foundation. And if you are building on an inauthentic foundation, that is quicksand. And what do you think is going to come of that? It's not sustainable. That's what truth does, flirties. When truth is out there, you can't say nothing but amen. Like, you know what? You right.
I'm just sitting here nodding my head, Dr. Shanté. Yep, that's That is full facts right there.
Like, that's about the size of it. And so when you're going into the situation, if you're not being your authentic self, if you feel like you have to shrink back, hold back, and this doesn't, or audition or tap dance, or because people always ask these questions out on social media, like, what's your deal breaker, or what's your biggest red flag, or what have you? And only you can know this answer for yourself. But for me, the answer is inconsistency, because inconsistency can be one of those things that triggers either, if not anxiety, certainly question, because it's like, if you are this person that's all in, that's totally invested, that's like locked in, and it seems like we have great chemistry, conversation, communication, and companionship, or what have you, and then the next week or the next couple of weeks is crickets, or it's one word answers, or it's like, I was busy at work. It's like, okay, that's not for me to interpret anything about what you think about me. That's for me to look at the truth. The truth is 2 weeks ago, you were acting this way. Today, you are acting that way. Yeah. That is a disconnect, and that disconnect doesn't work for me. Now, we can have conversation about it. We can say, is everything okay? And give them an opportunity to share or not share. Yeah. But let's refrain from immediately going into, was it something I said? Did I do something wrong? Because here's the other thing too. Yes. here, let's talk about responsible, healthy adult communication. I remember I did this video, and you probably saw it, where I said, let's talk about Bob. I said, let's say you go to work one day and you're like, hey, Bob. Bob is your coworker, right? And Bob is like, whatever. I said, there are people that would be like, uh-oh, Bob doesn't like me. What did I do to Bob? What happened to Bob? Did Bob say something to you? Let me tell you something. You whatever is wrong with Bob, that is on Bob. Okay. It is Bob's responsibility to come to you if you did do something and say, you know what? Last week when we were in that meeting and you said A, B, and C, I didn't appreciate that. That would be responsible communication saying, hey, going forward in meetings, I would really appreciate it if you would check with me or if you would do whatever. But that's on Bob. But for you to immediately be like, Bob doesn't like me or, did I do something to Bob? And now you've expended all this mental energy and anxiety trying to figure out what's wrong with Bob when it may not have anything to do with you. And so it is not our job in the dating process to be interpreters, to be therapists, to be soothsayers. It's not for us to run out on the lunch break and flip the tarot cards like, now, according to the book of leaves, that is not your job. It's like, let's deal with truth, facts, because all that is, if you think about this from a scientific perspective, if you can just kind of like set aside emotion for a smidge and be like, okay, what I have in front of me is data. And here's what the data is saying. And data tells a story. Now I can try to get input about the data because all I'm looking at is what, okay, but I may not know the why. And if that person is not willing to share the why or what have you, then that's when you have to make a decision about what do you want to do with the data that you have. Do you want to keep pushing? Do you want to keep trying? Do you want to keep waiting? Or do you want to say, you know what? I don't like myself. I don't like myself in this situation. I don't like the anxiety that I'm feeling. Yeah. I don't like the fingernail biting and the arm twisting and hand wringing that I'm doing. I don't like showing up in my life like this. I like it when things are even keel, consistent, and healthy. So I'm going to bow out. That's what your role is. It's you interpreting the data that's in front of you and making a decision about what you want to do with it.
I love it. A masterclass right here on Flirtations from Dr. Shanté. Yes, because what you offered the flirties so many good strategies just then about how to surrender, not just how, but what that looks like in the dating process. And it's like, you hear don't have expectations, or maybe you've heard it from me. Like what that means is it doesn't mean you don't have expectations. Like let's say you're dating because you want that long-term committed relationship, just as a classic example. That's a reasonable expectation. I don't want you to let go of that. But what we've got to let go of is the expectation that we're going to be able to control, to force someone else to become that person or become the version of themselves they need to be so that we can feel like ourselves, so we can feel safe and comfortable and just happy and fulfilled and content in a relationship. It's about releasing expectations to that and detaching from that this other person is going to be the person that just comes in and saves the day, right? The classic, like if you're dating the fellas, the prince on the horse or like riding in to save you kind of thing, to slay the dragon. Like that's you.
That's you.
That's you.
And, there's something really liberating about that, because this is what I mean when I say, when we give our power away, and it's like, giving our power away to determine how we're feeling and how we're showing up. And it's like, no, this is how I'm showing up. So case in point. Now, I am definitely an experienced girly rather than a materialistic girly, because if you give me $4,000 and be like, you can spend it on a handbag or you can spend this on a trip, I'm on the flight. Okay. I'm on the flight. Okay.
Give me those plane tickets. Yes.
Give me those plane tickets. Okay. Let's get these passport stamps. Okay. But for those of you who are the material girlies, when you walk into the Neiman Marcuses, the Barneys, the Harrods, the Bloomingdales or what have you, you know what they're not doing? They are not haggling prices. The bag is the bag. The price is the price.
Yes.
You can afford this or you can't afford this. And this is what I'm telling you, flirties. Your price is the price. These are yours. This is what your expectations are. These are what your desires are. And either that person is willing to meet you there or they're not willing to meet you there. But what I have never seen in a Harrods, a Barney's, a Bloomingdale's, or a Neiman Marcus is when somebody doesn't buy the bag, I don't see the salesperson flying out the door. Well, how much are you willing to pay? What's your budget?
Oh my God, you're so right.
They're not. What you want to do? What you want to pay? I have never seen that, and I don't think I will ever see that. And when we go, trading and negotiating, and this is not about, having the long list and it's like, you got to be everything on my list. Okay.
Right.
But when we start trading things like alignment, of values, when we start trading things like availability, emotional availability, and just having the reasonable expectation that this person is available to really build something, when we start negotiating that's what I mean when I say we give away our power.
I'm so with you there. Yeah, you're not seeing the salespeople at the Neiman's or the Nordstrom like blowing up your phone. Wait, but you can have the bag for half price. Like they're trying to just give it away now. No. They're not doing that. Yeah, and it's like your standards are like they got to be a part of your dating strategy. And it's like, the deal breakers and not settling for inconsistencies, things like that, of course. So that's, a big thing with consistency is so your nervous system can just begin to regulate and you can start to build some compatibility with someone that you're dating. But it's like where I oftentimes see the flirties start to settle and negotiate their standards a little bit is exactly what you were just saying, is around values, around things like lifestyle, around desires, right? It's ultimately, if you're dating because you want the relationship and you're looking to build a life with somebody, it's like we gotta think about these things.
We do have to think about these things. And a lot of times when I see people doing that, it is very much rooted in this mindset of scarcity, right? Because you hear, and I know you have heard it, especially in the world you live in. Oh my gosh, there's pee in the dating pool. The bar is in hell. The market is tight and all of that. But when you are creating from an abundant mindset and you are crystal clear on who you are and what you want, when other people are saying the market is tight, your response is not for me.
Not for
because what I desire is available. Period. Full stop.
Okay.
It's available. Full stop.
There you have it, flirties.
And there it is. It's like, so like the market might be tight. I'm like, speak for yourself. It's not tight for me. And the belief that what you want is available. And there's also something to be said about trusting the timing of your life. And I know that's the part that it's hard to be in the waiting room. It is hard to be in the waiting room. But you have also seen people who have rushed into something and then regretted it later. It's like, case in point, you can go into the store right now. You can walk into a Walmart, a grocery store, and you can get a Just Add Water microwave cake. Pop it in the microwave. It's like, I had a sweet tooth and I just wanted a cake. And you know as well as I do, it is not going to taste the same as a cake made from scratch.
No.
It's like if you had just been willing to take a little time, and invest a little more in the process, rather than this kind of bargain basement, last call for alcohol mentality, like, well...
But this is, getting to the truth of it again, because I've done this. It's like we get impatient.
We do.
And we rush.
We do.
Yeah.
We get impatient and we rush. And I'll be honest with you. So I'm an English professor, flirties, for those of you who don't know. And I'm not going to lie. I'm a Jane Austen girly, and because she was the queen of the slow burn, right?
Yeah.
Like you would read like 400 pages just for that one kiss on the forehead at the end, and it'd be like, oh my God, I love them. The build up, the tension, the whatever, and what have you. And some of us, we just want to get right to it. And I think that there is something to be said. Like, what was that book that I read? And it was, I think it was called F the Fairy Tale by Damona Hoffman.
Yeah. Damona was on the show.
Damona!
Yeah, F the Fairy Tale.
Yes. And so I love her 4 legs of the table analogy, right? Like it's got to be the values and the availability. Like take the time to build the table, right? Because a 2-legged table is not going to cut it. It's just not going to be there in terms of like going the distance. And what knowing who you are in this process does is it really helps you kind of like quickly eliminate. It helps you not to waste time. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, because it's not my job to try to make you and mold you and prep you and what have you. And to be honest with you, you know, a lot of people that I've talked to, men and women, usually it's men, will say, I can't sit here with a straight face and say that I've never had a good woman come into my life, because I have. But what did he say? But I wasn't ready.
I wasn't ready.
And so there's some wisdom and trust in the timing in your life. Yeah, it might be the right person, but it might not be the right time.
Right. Right.
And so do I want to be the person that's going through all the struggle love with you? No. You can circle back. Okay, when the cake is ready. Okay, when I can stick my little toothpick in it and it comes out clean. Then we can have a relationship, because I'm not trying to deal with that, with all that. And it doesn't mean that people are perfect, right? It doesn't mean that people are perfect. But because healed does not mean perfect, but healed does mean aware and working, honey. It means I am aware and I am working on it. Okay. And I'm not going to subject you to or make you responsible for the work that I know that I need to do. So I'm aware and I'm working on it. And I can work with that. Most people can.
I could work with that too, Dr. Shanté. I got just 2 more questions for you. This conversation has flown by, and we're going to end coming back to that, talking about self-belief and self-trust a little bit, just trusting the timing of, right, that things, what's meant to be will be, right? You're on the right path. I know that's classic advice. I got several questions here about how to surrender, like when you feel like nothing's going your way kind of thing. So just how to be with it, be more patient. But as we were talking before hitting record, I wanted to get your take on this duality of, or this maybe juxtaposition of surrender versus submission that we were talking about. Where I think sometimes if you're on social media, right, maybe surrender might look like something that it's not.
Something that it's not. Okay.
Yeah.
So submission, which is something that that's a word that is very popular in faith communities. So certainly Christian faith communities. And a lot of people have the impression that submission means subservient. And that is not what that means. Okay. Submission is and for those of you who do come from those faith communities, for the record, it talks about both people submitting, not just one, person being subservient to the other, but it is about a mutual trusting that I can trust this person with my whole self and trust that they are not going to abuse, misuse, exploit, and manipulate. That's what that is about. I can trust the parts of myself that are vulnerable, that are tender, and trust that this person can provide balance and structure for that. Because regardless of these traditional, roles or what have you, the truth is some people are just better at things than others. Like one partner is usually better at money than the other person. Okay. And it's like, I don't care who does that as long as we not broke and we can travel. Okay. Like as long as the bills are paid and we got money to go on the trip. Okay. Like I'm good with that. Who does it is not we get to determine that. Okay. And surrender is about allowing and releasing, not about giving up your person. Okay. Giving up who you are. Okay. To please the needs of somebody else, because it's not my job to fit in the pocket of your insecurities. It's not my job to manage your feelings. It's not my job to manage your disappointments. Oh, you can't come over tonight? I can't. And that's data. That's true. And you get to decide what you're going to do with that. It's not for me to try to like appease you. But what I can do is I can bring you breakfast in the morning. Those are your feelings. Okay. You decide what you're going to do with that, but it's not our job. And too often when we quote unquote surrender in the ways that are not healthy, we are surrendering ourselves. We are surrendering our power. We are surrendering our standards. And that's not about what this is. And one of the reasons why people do that, we don't even have time, but I will tell your 30s, I will pull that thread and ask yourself, where is this coming from? Because the truth is patterns like that don't start in dating. They start in childhood. Patterns like that do not start in dating. They start in childhood. And most of us have experienced some form of adversity. There's no getting around that. Nobody's childhood was a crystal stair. Okay. But after we experience what I call the ABCs of trauma, after you experience that adversity, you came to believe something about what that adversity meant. And so some people believe that adversity means I'm not enough, or I have to perform, or love is conditional, or I have to, do things. If I'm not achieving and doing, then that means I'm just not inherently worthy of love. And so that belief system subsequently leads to choices, and it leads to your choice in partner. It leads to your choice in job. It leads to your choice in how you show up in the world. And so I would say if you are surrendering your power and surrendering your values, that you can probably trace that to a key set of adversities in your childhood and the subsequent beliefs that you develop from them.
Wow. Start pulling the thread a little bit. Let's see. Oop, you can do this, flirties, and we are here for you for that process. We are going to end here just with, I could talk to you all day with some final words, echoing just what you were sharing about belief. So for the flirty that's listening, that is just like, you know what, I'm scared to let go. I think I have an idea what surrender means now. It's not surrendering myself, my values, my standards, my power, none of that. We've talked about acceptance and radical acceptance, healing, some dating and communication along the way. So now at the end of the conversation, how can we just maybe one or two things we haven't already discussed to just let go? Release.
So let me give you a reframe, flirty, that if you are in that place where you're like, things are not working out and I just feel stuck and I'm frustrated, I want to plant this seed. What if instead of thinking that these things are happening to you, that they are happening for you? Because almost everybody listening can point to a situation that at the time seemed like it was the worst thing ever. But then if that awful thing had not happened, then a subsequent wonderful thing also would not have happened. Like, wow, if I hadn't lost my job and had to relocate to another state, I would have never met this group of friends. I would have never met, the love of my life. I would have never. And at the time, losing the job felt crappy and it felt awful. And it was like, dang, why is this happening to you? What if it was happening for you? And trust that where you are in your life is where you are supposed to be. Because here's the thing. Here's the beauty about continuing to be yourself. And God forbid, but I'm going to end on a sports analogy. Now, I'm not
oh my God, a sports analogy.
Right? So here's the trick about football, right? Quarterbacks and running backs. So the quarterback is the person who throws the ball. The running back is the person who catches the ball. Yeah. What a lot of people don't know is that the running back is not running, looking behind his shoulder, like necessarily like, oh, throw it to me. The running back is running a very specific route that has been pre-assigned and preordained and set up with the coaches, right? And so if you deviate from the route, you are going to miss the ball because the quarterback also knows the route. And that's what so many of us do. We deviate from the route. We start negotiating our power away. We settle for less. Whereas, baby, if you had just kept running your route, you would have caught the ball. Okay. So just run the route. Keep being who you're supposed to be. And what's supposed to land in your hand, when it's supposed to land in your hand, it will. Trust the timing of your life.
That is exactly what I needed to hear today, Dr. Shanté.
Well, all right. Come on, football.
Thank you for that sports reference to conclude our conversation and just for sharing so much wisdom and insight with myself and with the flirties, the flirt community today. I want to send them all your way to your socials. If they're not already following, I know they will be after this, to the podcast, Hole in Your Heart on YouTube, to your website. Yeah. Where can they follow you and learn more about you?
So you guys can follow me on YouTube, youtube.com/Dr. Shanté, which is DrShante, and on all of my social media at Dr. Shanté Says, because as y'all can see, I got a lot to say. So Dr. Shanté Says. And Ben, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
I am so glad. It was a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for being on Flirtations today.
You're so welcome. Bye, flirties.
All All right, Flirties, that's a wrap on this episode of Flirtations, the Art of Surrender episode of the program with the absolutely incredible Dr. Shanté Holley. Y'all, this was one of those episodes where I sat back, I listened, I took it all in, asked a couple of questions, chimed in from time to time, but I was here to just be, observe, listen, and just feel. Right? Dr. Shanté, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I've been a follower and admirer and just a listener for a long time, and really appreciate you sharing your time, your insights, your wisdom with me and with the Flirties. I love creating this episode with you, debuting it today. If you're listening to it upon debut for the Flirties, thank you, Dr. Shanté. And y'all, check out the podcast, the Instagram, the coaching, the website. It's all there for you. So much more on the art of surrender and other just matters of life, right? Matters of the heart. Yeah, she talks about it all. All right. Thank you to you, the Flirties, for listening, for tuning in, for streaming wherever you may be in the world. None of this would be possible without you. I've said it before. I can only listen to my podcast so many times. I can only play it on stream, right, on Spotify, stream it for my cat so many times before even she gets like, Benjamin, really? Put on some crickets, put on some birds, put on something else, literally anything. So thank you so much for listening, for being here. Please rate, review, subscribe to the show, share this episode or another favorite episode with someone you want to share some BFE, Big Flirt energy with. I'd love and appreciate you for it. Thank you so much. All right, signing off officially here at Flirt Headquarters. My name is Benjamin. I'm the Flirt Coach and Gay Libra Flirty. Happy flirting.